1. Ontario. 2. Quebec. 3. The Maritime Provinces, Nova Scotia, and New Brunswick, which 3 divisions shall, subject to the provisions of this Act, be equally represented in the Senate, as follows: Ontario by 24 senators, Quebec by 24 senators, and the Maritime Provinces by 24 senators, 12 thereof representing Nova Scotia, and 12 thereof representing New Brunswick. In the case of Quebec, each of the 24 senators representing that province shall be appointed for one of the 24 electoral divisions of Lower Canada specified in Schedule A. 2. Chapter 1 of the Consolidated Statutes of Canada. The reference in Section 22 to the Consolidated Statutes of Canada is a reference to the Consolidated Statutes of 1859. 13. Section 44 of the Constitution Act, 1999, Nunavut, SC 1998, C15, Part 2, provided that, for the purposes of that part, which added 1 senator for Nunavut, the word province in Section 23 of the Constitution Act, 1867 has the same meaning as is assigned to the word province by Section 35 of the Interpretation Act, RSC 1985, C1 to 21, as amended, which provides that the term province means a province of Canada and includes Yukon, the Northwest Territories, and Nunavut. Section 2 of the Constitution Act, Number 2, 1975, SC 1974-1975-1976, C53, provided that for the purposes of that Act, which added 1 senator each for the Yukon Territory and the Northwest Territories, the term province in Section 23 of the Constitution Act, 1867 has the same meaning as is assigned to the term province by Section 28 of the Interpretation Act, RSC 1970, C1 to 23, which provides that the term province means a province of Canada and includes the Yukon Territory and the Northwest Territories. 14. Repealed by the Statute Law Revision Act, 1893, 56 to 57 Victoria, C14, UK, the section read as follows: 25. Such persons shall be first summoned to the Senate, as the Queen by warrant under Her Majesty's Royal Sign Manual thinks fit to approve, and their names shall be inserted in the Queen's Proclamation of Union. 15. As amended by the Constitution Act, 1915, 5 to 6 George V, C45, UK, the original section read as follows: 26. If at any time on the recommendation of the Governor-General the Queen thinks fit to direct that 3 or 6 members be added to the Senate, the Governor-General may by summons to 3 or 6 qualified persons, as the case may be, representing equally the 3 divisions of Canada, add to the Senate accordingly. 16. As amended by the Constitution Act, 1915, 5 to 6 George V, C45, UK, the original section read as follows: 27. In case of such addition being at any time made, the Governor-General shall not summon any person to the Senate, except on a further like direction by the Queen, on the like recommendation, until each of the 3 divisions of Canada is represented by 24 senators, and no more. 17. As amended by the Constitution Act, 1915, 5 to 6 George V, C45, UK, the Constitution Act, Number 2, 1975, SC 1974-1975-1976, C53, and the Constitution Act, 1999, Nunavut, SC 1998, C15, Part 2. The original section read as follows: 28. The number of senators shall not at any time exceed 78. 18. As enacted by the Constitution Act, 1965, SC 1965, C4, which came into force on June 2, 1965. The original section read as follows: 29. A senator shall, subject to the provisions of this Act, hold his place in the Senate for life. 19. Provision for exercising the functions of Speaker during his or her absence is made by Part 2 of the Parliament of Canada Act, RSC 1985, C. P1, formerly the Speaker of the Senate Act, RSC 1970, C. S14. Doubts as to the power of Parliament to enact the Speaker of the Senate Act were removed by the Canadian Speaker Appointment of Deputy Act 1895, 2'S 59 Victoria, C3, UK, which was repealed by the Constitution Act 1982. 20. The figures given here result from the application of Section 51, as enacted by the Constitution Act 1985, Representation, SC 1986, C8, Part 1, and amended by the Constitution Act 1999, Nunavut, SC 1998, C15, Part 2, and readjustments made pursuant to the Electoral Boundaries Readjustment Act, RSC 1985, C, E3. The original section, which was altered from time to time as the result of the addition of new provinces and changes in population, read as follows. 37. The House of Commons shall, subject to the provisions of this Act, consist of 181 members, of whom 82 shall be elected for Ontario, 65 for Quebec, 19 for Nova Scotia, and 15 for New Brunswick. 21. Spent. The electoral districts are now established by proclamations issued from time to time under the Electoral Boundaries Readjustment Act, RSC 1985, C, E3, as amended for particular districts by Acts of Parliament. See the most recent table of public statutes and responsible ministers. 22. Spent. Elections are now provided for by the Canadian Elections Act, SC 2000, C9. Qualifications and disqualifications of members by the Parliament of Canada Act, RSC 1985, C, P1. The right of citizens to vote and hold offices provided for in Section 3 of the Constitution Act, 1982. 23. Repealed by the Statute Law Revision Act, 1893, 56-57 Victoria, C14, UK. The section read as follows. 42. For the first election of members to serve in the House of Commons, the Governor-General shall cause writs to be issued by such person, in such form, and addressed to such returning officers, as he thinks fit. The person issuing writs under this section shall have the like powers as are possessed at the Union by the officers charged with the issuing of writs for the election of members to serve in the respective House of Assembly or Legislative Assembly of the Province of Canada, Nova Scotia, or New Brunswick. And the returning officers to whom writs are directed under this section shall have the like powers as are possessed at the Union by the officers charged with the returning of writs for the election of members to serve in the same respective House of Assembly or Legislative Assembly. 24. Repealed by the Statute Law Revision Act, 1893, 56-57 Victoria, C14, UK. The section read as follows. 43. In case a vacancy in the representation, in the House of Commons, of any electoral district happens before the meeting of the Parliament, or after the meeting of the Parliament before provision is made by the Parliament in this behalf, the provisions of the last foregoing section of this Act shall extend and apply to the issuing and returning of a writ in respect of such vacant district. 25. Provision for exercising the functions of Speaker during his or her absence is now made by Part 3 of the Parliament of Canada Act, RSC 1985, C, P1. 26. The term of the 12th Parliament was extended by the British North America Act, 1916, 6-7 George V, C19, UK, which Act was repealed by the Statute Law Revision Act, 1927, 17-18 George V, C42, UK. See also the Constitution Act, 1982, subsection 4, 1, which provides that no House of Commons shall continue for longer than 5 years from the date fixed for the return of the writs at a general election of its members, and subsection 4, 2, which provides for continuation of the House of Commons in special circumstances. 27. As enacted by the Fair Representation Act, SC 2011, C26, S2, which came into force on royal assent on December 16, 2011. The section, as originally enacted, read as follows. 51. on the completion of the census in the year 1871, and of each subsequent decennial census, the representation of the 4 provinces shall be readjusted by such authority, in such manner, and from such time as the Parliament of Canada from time to time provides, subject, and according to the following rules. 1. Quebec shall have the fixed number of 65 members. 2. There shall be assigned to each of the other provinces such a number of members as will bear the same proportion to the number of its population, ascertained at such census as the number 65 bears to the number of the population of Quebec, so ascertained. 3. In the computation of the number of members, for a province a fractional part not exceeding 1/2 of the whole number requisite for entitling the province to a member shall be disregarded, but a fractional part exceeding 1/2 of that number shall be equivalent to the whole number. 4. On any such readjustment the number of members for a province shall not be reduced unless the proportion which the number of the population of the province bore to the number of the aggregate population of Canada at the then last preceding readjustment of the number of members for the provinces ascertained at the then latest census to be diminished by 1/20th part or upwards. 5. Such readjustment shall not take effect until the termination of the then existing Parliament. Section 51 was amended by the Statute Law Revision Act, 1893, 56-57 Victoria, C14, UK, by repealing the words "after of the census to 71" and the word "subsequent." By the British North America Act, 1943, 6-7 George VI, C30, UK, which act was repealed by the Constitution Act, 1982. Redistribution of seats following the 1941 census was postponed until the first session of Parliament after the war. The section was reenacted by the British North America Act, 1946, 9-10 George VI, C63, UK, which act was also repealed by the Constitution Act, 1982, to read as follows.